The IDX broker aggregated method, like all other methods, exists to spread the utility of the data that IDX broker is providing to its developer partners. Developers can access this data in a programmatic and automated fashion, which is preferable, always. Additionally, IDX broker developer partners have access to some data in an aggregated fashion. This means data across all clients all at once. This also allows for better managing of multiple clients, clients with lots of agents, lots of leads, things of that nature, and the ability to update your data incrementally rather than have to do a full update every single time. This API can provide data to any platform really you wish once you've grabbed the data. CRMs, website templates or themes, WordPress, Joomla, anything really you can create and work with. Like everything with our API, there are some limitations. The API cannot make MLS listing property queries. You'll not be able to pull property listing details from our API. You'll not be able to do a search query either. This means you will not be able to query for a property type or a price range and get a list of search results. The only exception to this is the featured listings of an account or accounts if it's aggregated. That information about those specific properties to that account can be returned via the API. This is much less a technological difficulty as it is an MLS compliance issue. If you're looking for the data that comes directly from the MLS, the raw MLS data, you'll have to reach out to the MLSs themselves. Your ancillary partner key, it has to be in the request headers and carries a limit of 750 API calls per client per hour. So that's quite a large increase over the client level of 250. All aggregated methods are going to require the ancillary partner level key at least. Some you may want to use in conjunction with the client level key. Some aggregated methods have time and bandwidth constraints. This is going to be some of the bigger data returns like leads or lead traffic data. There's more specifics on each of these in our API documentation. You'll want to look at that for either of those methods. We do have some requirements as well. You are going to need a valid IDX Broker Platinum API key. API keys are only valid while the account is active. So if you're using a client level key and the account's disabled, that's not going to work anymore. If you're a partner and your partner level account's disabled, your API key will no longer work. Content type must be specified in request headers. This is the same across all API calls. You must make your API calls using HTTPS. That is also the same across every single API call. You'll need to use your partner level ancillary key, which is available in your partner level dashboard for the methods we're going to be talking about today. This key is located here. This is my partner account. This key will be revoked after this webinar, so don't bother writing it down. You can find your key here just like you can in any other account. It will be specific to your partner level account, and you can revoke it just like any other. View the API traffic just like any other API key. And I've already pulled a couple things. This is an interesting feature here where you can upgrade your clients to the default API version. That will come in more handy when the API gets versioned, which it should be getting soon. Certain methods may change a little bit. You're going to want to consult our docs for any version changes. And you'll also want to check here in either the notifications or possibly the message center. Actually, message center is specific to your account. So you want to check here in the notifications for notifications on API versioning. You can see right here there's an enhancement already in this for the current API features. So new access to API content shows. This is where an announcement would be made, and it's easy enough to just check all the time here in your partner level account. So aggregated methods are exclusive to the developer partners and cannot be accessed with a client-level API key. Here's a couple examples here. Aggregated leads across all your clients. Aggregated traffic for your leads. Aggregated searches for your leads. Aggregated featured properties for your clients. Aggregated supplemental properties for your clients. And aggregated agents for your clients. And there's actually more than those. Those are just kind of the most popular ones. These will make it much easier to manage large numbers of accounts, or in the case of the aggregated agents, even a single account that, say, has multiple offices and many, many agents. It'll be a lot easier to pull information from the API for all the agents at once than it would be to go through one at a time and get the information. A good example of that's going to be like a password or a login for an agent. Gathering data via aggregated methods calls the data across multiple clients. So at the client level, we're talking about data from one client, one time per call. Doing it aggregated will mean fewer calls to get the same or even more data. So you're making fewer calls, getting the exact same data you would have gotten in a client level call, but you're getting it across all of them in one call. So this means fewer calls, same or more data. Some data is specific to aggregated methods, so keep that in mind as well. Most aggregated data is available in incremental fashion. This means you can specify a time frame from which to get the data. To get only the data you need, you can go through and get all the data for leads going back to a specific time, or you can get all the data for leads going back to a much smaller specific time. Say the first one to populate for months or a year back, and then every incremental update will only be, say, an hour. This is all up to you, how you want to program it and what variables you set in your API calls. Aggregated data also allows a partner to manage large accounts pretty easily. The ability to pull information from all the featured listings, for example, all the agents, for example, and pull them all at once allows you to get the information that account needs across, even if it is 100 agents, for example. So let's take a quick look at an aggregated call for agents. Like I said, this will allow you to get all the agents at once, all the information on your agents. So we have a pretty simple URL to be calling in this call. There's no time or anything on this, just calls the agents. The access key is going to be, in this case, your partner level key. You don't need the client level key since we're just going to call it aggregated across all of them. You can see more of this documentation here at that address. And I'll post that link under the YouTube video that this will be inhabiting. This calls agents across all the clients under this dev code. This is a demo account, which I showed you earlier. I only have a couple accounts on there. You see the AIDs. So there's not going to be that much data, but it's going to be enough so we can see an example of how this is going to work. The IDs are associated with the account along with an ID numerically to identify the agent. This means each agent is going to have a number and an account number associated with it as well. We can cache all this information, keep it in some sort of tables or whatever kind of database you want to keep, and access it, join it with other calls, send it to CRM, send it out to the agents themselves if you want to set that up. So let's go ahead and get all the agents across this dev code. So here we see agent information. We have IDs, we have names. This agent's named Green Lantern. We have more information, the street they're from, the city they're from, the state, the location of their agent bio image, bio details. It goes on and on about, and here's another agent down here. Here, like I was saying, the username. We can send out the passwords from within this key. We can even send out different phone numbers, agent home phone number, if you want to provide that. And of course, home fax. and all other kinds of data we're going to want to get for agents. So this would be the information returned. You can send it out if you need to, like I said, the passwords and whatnot, or you can just store it for later use and update it whenever you get more agents into the account. So for most aggregated methods, you're going to want to specify a time frame in your URL. The last aggregated method did not have that option. That just pulled all the agents available in the account at the time. So for the next method we're going to look at, we will be specifying the time frame that we're going to want to pull the data from. And these are listed as optional values in the API documentation, and they're listed as interval, which is the number of hours worth of data to return. The start time, this is the date and time from which the interval starts to count back. And the date type, there are several dates associated with the lead. This will specify the lead information that you're going to return. Not all the methods have a time option, like you just saw with the aggregated agents method. It did not have a time option. Some do, most do, some do not. This will likely hold true in the future as well as new methods are added to the aggregated section of our API. So let's take a look at this one. So I set up some variables here in this API call to allow us to get the data on all the leads within a specified time frame. In this case, I'll be getting the last activity date. This is the last time the lead was active in our system. So I started with the normal variable from the docs, taken straight from the API documentation, and you'll see it has sample times in there. So I set up some variables to manipulate this every time we loop through and make a new call. I set up the date, which is just going to be the PHP function date to get the current date. I set up a variable called less week, which is 1 week less than the last call. This should begin with the normal date, which is now, and then every time it loops through, subtract 1 week. The end date variable that I set here is going to be the date I wish the loop to stop. So this will go through, and you can see I've changed the URL variable in our API call to have less week. This will loop through and only stop when the less week variable equals or is equal to the end date variable. I'll be using a while loop in here. I also set up a little bit of pretty simple error handling if the code, HTTP response code located in the variable $code, is anything above 204, the loop stops. This would be if the request entity was too large, if there's an API error, if I'm over my API access limit, those would respond and those would cause a code higher than 204 to show up. So let's go ahead and run this and watch it loop through and grab us some data. So the loop below starts here. This is the first one at my predefined date, or back to my predefined date. And let's take a look at the data we get. This is a lead. Ned Leads, his name is. I've taken the liberty of adding some info about this call. This is specific to this call. I got our 200 response code. This is the URL I used. You can see the date, 2014-326, does not match the date that will end my loop. This is the next date that will be replacing this date in my call. Since I have not reached the end, I've set it up to report that, and here is the next call. Looks like there was no traffic that week. Again, no traffic from the leads. And you can see the dates are changing. The next date to be used keeps going back 1 week. No traffic that week. Here's some traffic this week. Looks like this was me, Antonio Ortega. And looks like I did something that week. And it'll just keeps looping through, grabbing data in chunks of 1 week. There's another one. And if we scroll all the way to the end, some more data, you'll see that once this date has matched this date, my loop stops, and I've gotten what I've predetermined as enough data historically on this lead activity. I've set it here to say stopping the loop when the end date is reached. So now I have all this data going back. Looks like I go back into last year. I can cache all this data. I've got timestamps of when it all happened. I can organize this data however I see fit. So the next time I run this, instead of running it back till last year, I can go for a smaller amount of time. Let's say 1 hour. So if I run this script 24 times a day to get the last hour of data, it'll do the same thing that I just showed, but it'll stop after an hour. So I'm no longer calling the API to update all the time with all the data. I just need the last hour in this case. Of course, you can program this however you see fit, more calls or fewer calls. I'm not sure I would go for real time. Real time is still going to be kind of a lot of calls to get, and it's much better to go even 5-10 minutes if you're going to go that close, like semi-real time. What this does is instead of multiplying the number of calls my resources are making with each client added, my calls stay the same, and I still get the data I want for my clients. Also, my system is ready to do the same thing with other aggregated methods, such as lead traffic, which is a pretty popular one now since it came out. All the traffic across all your leads where they went on your site. So not only is data available from specific time frames, but many partner level aggregated methods provide more data than the client level. You can use these along with the client level calls, and this will return more information than you would have with just client level. A good example is the featured listings. Aggregated methods will return more fields than client methods. So if you're already pulling it, you can pull it aggregated, which is just one extra call, and then populate your database with even more information for your clients. The fewer calls results in less restrictive call budgeting for clients and fewer resources being used by everyone. You're using resources to make these calls. We're using resources to serve these calls. The more efficient that is, the better it is for all parties involved. Also, you don't have to worry about hitting that limit of your API limit all the time. You can rest easy knowing that you're making fewer calls and have plenty of room for more calls should your client want to hook up other things to the API. So that's my couple examples here about aggregated methods and the overall concept of their efficiency. In the future, there's going to be more API versioning, new methods coming out, more videos I'll be making on specific methods and new API methods as they're released. And I'm also going to be looking at getting more developer partner resources such as this, things that speak to a programmatic level or a higher coding level. I want to thank everybody for attending the webinar today. I know it was a little short, but this is pretty much a overall concept on the webinar. If you have any questions on the aggregated methods or you need any of this documentation, this will be on YouTube. The documentation to our API, all our API calls, I will make available in the YouTube description. If you have any other questions, feel free to email me at developers@idxbroker.com. I'll be happy to answer them within the email, as they're probably going to be complicated questions since we're dealing with our application program interface. Thank you again to everybody.